Hello, friends of the truth. Today I will tell you unusual information about our existence. Listen carefully. This will blow your mind. Let's refine the information received with this channeling, which complements the picture of the hologram and the sides. Once upon a time, in ancient times, certain entities set off on a long journey. They flew through outer space, and their flight lasted many decades. During all this time, they did not see anything remarkable, no new worlds. They just did boring, routine work. Then one of the crew members came up with the idea to write a hologram so that it would have an action in which he himself could play an active role. The program provided options for choice. It followed the main plot, but the player could make his own decisions and, in the end, no longer knew where the game would lead him or how it would end. In short, it was an interactive video program. If the end of the game were known in advance, it would lose its sharpness and excitement. So, one of the crew members wrote this program and first tried it out in a simulator to get a feel for it. It had to become as realistic as possible. As soon as the particles of photon light allowed, because this hologram was nothing more than a projection from light. We will call this spaceship crew member Shaw, and gender does not play any role here. Shaw means both masculine and feminine. So, after the initial break-in his free time, of which there was a lot on this long journey, Shaw tried out his program for real. He was delighted. The program opened up to him such corners of his personality that he did not even know existed. He expanded the program more and more, and now the long flight became more interesting for him. But what became most interesting for him was traveling through the expanses of his inner world. His companions, of course, saw what Shaw was doing. They wanted to know why he did it, what meaning he put into his program, and what results he hoped for. Without going into lengthy explanations, he instead gave them the opportunity to become participants in his program. Since the space crew consisted of individuals, the plot of the hologram changed a little with each new player and his actions, and this was extremely entertaining for everyone. Flight gradually lost its meaning. The crew spent more and more time around the hologram, each eagerly waiting their turn to make their own changes to the game's progress. Then it occurred to another crew member that it would be much more interesting to build this game in such a way that the player does not know that it is just a game, so that his memory is temporarily blocked. It was not erased, mind you, but only blocked and had to be restored after the end of the game. The participants really liked this new option, but sooner or later, all the possibilities of the game were exhausted. What's next? The crew members decided that they would all come up with new stories, and everyone could use the stories of their colleagues so that they would be provided with entertainment for a long time during a boring flight. Of course, it was necessary to guarantee the safety of the flight itself, so part of the crew had to remain outside the hologram. Some crew members were not interested in the game, and they voluntarily remained to control the spaceship, but there were not enough of them. Therefore, the rest, no matter how passionate they were about the game, had to take turns keeping watch. And then someone came up with the idea to connect all the separate stories to make the game even more exciting and unpredictable. No sooner said than done. All plots were coordinated with each other, and this extended the playing time for a long time. Now the main role was played first by one crew member, then by another, then by a third. Everyone got the opportunity to play both leading and supporting roles and test themselves. The supporting players gave the main player advice and direction, and directed the story in the originally intended direction. Since the main player no longer remembered this, the supporting roles were written in such a way that such instructions came from them and awakened something in the memory of the game leader. A kind of code was sent that influenced his actions. Second roles were provided for visible players and the same roles for invisible ones. While all the off-duty crew members participated in the hologram, the remaining awake travelers noticed a strange thing: outer space, where until quite recently there was nothing remarkable, no colors, no sounds, nothing began to change. Not only did some colors appear in it, but also movement, vortices, etc. were observed in these colors. Over time, it became clear. The more complex the plots of the hologram inside the ship were, the more complex the surrounding space became. There was a direct connection between what was happening inside and what was taking shape around the ship. The awake crew members were very frightened, as it became clear to them that their colleagues were the culprits of such changes, although everything seemed to them like a harmless game. It turns out that the crew was responsible not only for what was happening inside the ship, but also for the external environment. They also realized that they could no longer continue the hologram haphazardly, without thinking about their actions, and they could not even stop it since it influenced the real world and participated in its formation. She also influenced their journey and its purpose. And their goal was their home planet. They were flying home, but now it turned out that they could not direct their ship to the target with the help of the means at their disposal. The target was obscured by what had formed around their ship. They discussed what to do. It was necessary to form the internal environment, that is, the hologram, in such a way that their original purpose became visible again. The task was seemingly impossible and required more specialists than the team on duty had at that moment. And so, although the hologram was still ongoing, they decided, if possible, to awaken as many crew members as possible before the end of the game. Awakening meant returning their memories. Since the withdrawal of the required number of specialists from the game meant the complete destruction of the entire game, and therefore the surrounding their spaceship. Of course, they could take a certain number of specialists out of the game at the same time without damaging the plot too much. They did so, but they were not enough to again find the goal and the road to it. Therefore, they woke up as many colleagues as possible, but they remained in the game. The advantage of this situation was that the decisions made were immediately implemented. True, communicating with those who needed to be awakened turned out to be very difficult. The players did not believe that what they perceived as reality was only a hologram or one of many levels of reality. The game went on too long for the reality outside to be clearly perceived. The player's memory could only be restored gradually, since the whole truth could cause shock, and then the players would not be able to complete the task assigned to them. They had to gradually remember who they were and also overcome the desire to quit the game and help their sober colleagues again find their goal, their home planet. That is, they had to understand that they would help in finding the goal from within, from the hologram, and that they all depend on each other, both awake outside the game and awakened players inside the hologram. Of course, the awake ones did not wake up all the players in a row, but specialists in certain fields. But gradually it was necessary to wake everyone up, to remind them who they were, and that the stories they had invented went beyond mere entertainment and became reality, which began to influence the original reality and change it. The players had to realize that each of them is responsible for the current situation, and the awakened ones were now responsible for themselves, as well as for those who were still asleep, and for all colleagues outside the hologram. The crew of the spaceship was not fully aware of the power of their creative energy, so they had to deal with their creations and take responsibility for them. How did they wake up the players, you ask? And I will answer. The measures originally conceived to control the game were so strengthened that the players increasingly noticed that someone else was influencing the game, that they were not alone, that there was another reality behind their reality. Thus, their curiosity was awakened, and it increasingly activated the codes. After all, the crew members were smart beings and provided an awakening code in case they had to remove everyone without exception from the game. Only now they could not wake everyone up at the same time, as originally planned, since the hologram had to continue. It influenced the original reality so much that if it was turned off, it could destroy it too. So, the hologram had to be continued or reformatted until all the players were awakened to see the result they had unconsciously or thoughtlessly created. But in order for the result to be good for everyone, it was now necessary to act not haphazardly, but meaningfully, and this was the main problem. Waking up is always difficult. You have to overcome too many barriers, many difficulties. But when you awaken, dear people, only then will the real work begin, the conscious formation of a new universe. What will she look like? The crew of the spaceship did not influence the surrounding outer space with their hologram game. While it was only a small episode, similar to stories from the life of Leonardo da Vinci. I don't want to say that the history of the Earth began with him. This is just an example. The space crew enjoyed their entertainment so much that they spread the story far back and forth into the past and the future. They made up stories that happened before and after Leonardo, but even this was not enough for them. They extended their story to the entire solar system and even further to distant galaxies and even further into the past and future, and in endless variations as each played the story in his own way. The moment artificial stories left the solar system, they ceased to exist artificially and turned into reality. This reality spread like a shockwave throughout the universe and changed it. It was as if someone had flipped a giant toggle switch and created something that had never existed before. That which existed only in the imagination of a few entities acquired such materiality that it overcame the old reality and gained control over everything. Those who were not on the spaceship flying home were also affected. In an instant, they found themselves in another reality, which they did not create and which they did not like. This reality was associated with violence and conflict. Naturally, they wanted to find out what happened. But the new reality imposed restrictions on them that were not there before. It took them longer than they expected to figure out who happened and who was to blame. The culprit remained unknown for a long time, and during this time, the new reality asserted itself more and more, and nothing could be done about it. Finally, they found the intruder. The cosmic entities eventually paid a visit to the ship's crew, and this required all the efforts of the crew. They conferred about the situation and called Shah to account. And he had not participated in the game for a long time because he did not like what the other players had done with it. He was the first to look out the window and realized what had happened. He felt responsible for everything, although in fact he was not guilty, since he never wanted things to reach such proportions. In addition, he had been working on a solution to the problem for a long time and proposed it to those who discussed it. The meeting participants did not like his proposal, but it was the only chance for success. Everyone agreed that the old reality could no longer be restored. This requires too much intervention, and too many species that have emerged as a result of new transformations will disappear. In general, the new transformations enriched the living space, but at the same time, they led to the destruction of both the new and the old, since in some things, the new and the old mutually destroyed each other. Therefore, new transformations had to be put into a groove that would prevent death and create a reality that unites the new and the old. It was necessary to develop a new strategy, to determine the main axis of time into which all others could flow. A big role here was given to the figures from the game, which at first were only holograms without a soul. They, let's call them people, were just programs without their own consciousness or intelligence. They participated in the game, but had almost no influence on it, since there were not enough players to animate all these figures, endow them with consciousness, and thus increase the element of unpredictability. a self-awareness program was introduced. The figures received the opportunity to concentrate the energy of consciousness, become aware of themselves, and develop thanks to this. This made the game even more interesting. It received many additional unpredictable components. Now it was necessary to use these components and bring order to the ensuing chaos. Meetings were held constantly. It was necessary to determine what next steps to take, when and how, and check the results. There was regular cooperation between those inside the ship and those outside. Both groups had their own points of view, and little by little they integrated. The consciousness of human figures was also taken into account. It gradually became clear that they were the keys to correcting the situation. They were given free will, something that, according to the terms of the game, the crew members almost did not have, since their role was set in advance. But people were free in their desires, thoughts, feelings, and actions. They were subject to certain laws and restrictions only when the game served to entertain their creators. Now it turns out that they have the potential to reach the next level if given enough space. The creators put into them every idea they could imagine. At first, this was not in the interests of the players. The game should have remained more or less under control. But when it became clear that she had long since gone beyond the spaceship, all barriers for people were gradually removed. So there are different entities at work in my story. Firstly, the crew members of the spaceship, aliens, who gradually realize that they are just guests in this reality. But at the same time, they themselves have changed their own reality so much that they barely recognize it. Now, they are looking for ways to combine both of these realities and live in both at the same time, since these realities already need to be brought together. Secondly, these are people who have developed only here. Their spiritual, mental, and physical potential has connected everything imaginable, and they themselves are not subject to any restrictions. Of course, one limitation was nevertheless introduced: a red thread along which the development of human consciousness and the process of returning memory to aliens must and will occur. Otherwise, chaos will increase rather than decrease. This is the frequency of heart vibration. Progress in the development of consciousness on both sides is governed by the vibrations of love. To supervise the game, a central computer was used that controlled the spaceship. It controls the vibrational frequency of love. This is a multi-year process that requires a lot of dedication, and we understand that. But you do it not only for yourself, but for everyone. And here's something else I didn't mention. In order to gain as much new experience as possible, to play as many roles as possible, the participants in the game divided themselves into parts, divided their souls, one might say so. This was possible only through severe experience. For example, if a person became a murderer or a murder victim. The more often, the more parts were split off from a person, the more roles he could perform. This process now needs to be reversed. Now people are collecting the parts of their split soul. For aliens, these are their own fragments of the soul. For people, These are fragments of a puzzle that needs to be assembled. And as a result of this, everyone's personality changes every time. Some become who they were and are, and others become who they will be. Here, another unusual circumstance is added. It simultaneously complicates and simplifies everything. Of those who participated in the meeting on board the spacecraft and were not there initially, some, there were not many of them, decided to directly intervene in what was happening. They decided to play some rounds in individual stories of the hologram and then infiltrate it, and at the same time do a preliminary activation so that individuals would actually be ready to awaken once the awakening codes were sent. One of these new players can be called Jesus Christ. It is also known in many variants, and a number of people think that they were in this role, and they are right. Only in the timeline that would become the main one was this role played by one of the new players, and only here were pre-activation measures taken that would lead to a mass awakening now, in our time, and it came true. Understand that this is not something that influenced or influences the originally planned history, that is, the past. But it definitely influences what happens now. There are time specialists who are so skillful at zipping, bringing together separate timelines, parallel universes, dimensions, etc., that no one is harmed in the process. The result is optimal for everyone, a new unity, if you like. This can only be done from the inside, not from the outside. The zipper can be fastened only when you pull the zipper, and not when you simply bring the edges of the material together. It's exactly the same here. Let's just say that my story tells your story only. If everything around you is a holographic projection, what then are you? Is it also just a combination of light and energy that you call matter? The hologram can be changed by changing the parameters, that is, the input data of the program. This is the process you are currently engaged in. After all, understand that when you, for example, expel the symptoms of a disease from the body and delve into its cause, this information is reintroduced into the entire system. As you may know, each particle of a hologram contains information about the entire hologram. So it is here. If you change something in one part of the body, you change it in the whole body. But your body is also part of a larger hologram, a larger body, and if you change something in yourself, it again affects the whole, always. If a critical mass of cancer is expelled from your body, then a large program is automatically rewritten, and this disease leaves you. Such information is transmitted through morphogenetic fields, which are again formed and controlled by light impulses. Light is everything. Information is everything. Information changes, so does light or its absence, that is, darkness. In other words, any disease is curable if the corresponding program is rewritten in individuals and in a sufficient number of individuals in general to reprogram the entire disease program. One of the reasons for the success of pranic light nutrition is that the hologram cannot be eaten. The only thing that prevents you from going without food is your belief that you should eat, that is, your programming for food. Humanity is facing a decisive step to change the program not of individual people, but of everyone at once. The consequences of this are becoming increasingly noticeable, but the original hologram must remain for some time, yet for those who cannot or should not awaken yet, as well as for external reality, for the above reasons, to be continued. My dearest brothers and sisters, this is Ashtar speaking. I greet you in peace and love. I know that times on your planet are incredibly tough, and yet I also understand that I only know this somewhat intellectually. That isn't nearly the same as living through it. Some people have pointed out in the comment section that US galactics may be emotionally scarred from over-intervening during Atlantis and on other worlds. Good point. I think there may be some truth to this. We had noted this previously. But I have again drawn attention to this and recommended that everyone in decision-making positions visit a healer to check if they still have some emotional disbalance here. We remember our past lives and thus our past over-interventions well, which also means that past life trauma is quite sticky with us. There is some societal healing and societal unburdening that we are working through. Still, I don't think that our reluctance to intervene is all just emotional trauma on our side. I think that may be a small part of it, but I don't think that's the largest part of it. To you, it might seem obvious that us intervening today is the best solution. However, waiting, say, a year means that there is some reasonable probability of humanity freeing itself. The gray hats are doing certain things behind the scenes, and the consciousness of humanity is rising. So it's not impossible that humanity frees itself without action by the gray hats. An intervention by us could be needless if it turns out humanity frees itself without us. And in an unlikely, but also not impossible scenario, a needless intervention by us could cause instability and suffering for, say, 100 years. A year of suffering now to potentially prevent 100 years of suffering might be worth it. I get that you may disagree, but keep in mind that you are deeply experiencing the current pain, while the potential suffering caused by an over-intervention is very abstract to you. Someone in severe pain obviously cares more about their current pain than about potential future pain. However, we also feel a responsibility towards future generations, who might be the ones to pay the price if we over-intervene now. Fundamentally, we have an intervention dilemma, and it basically is this. How do you weigh up the current suffering of billions of people versus the potential suffering that could be caused by us possibly over-intervening and possibly producing instability? There is some probability that humanity will free itself anyway, and thus our intervention may just produce potential instability for nothing. So on one hand, we have current suffering. On the other hand, there's a relatively long period of potential suffering that could occur from us over-intervening, which is worse. And at which point do we intervene to end the current suffering? Well, this can't be answered by just solving a mathematical equation. In my mind, There is no single, objectively correct answer here. To us, there are some answers that are just bad solutions to this dilemma, and there are some answers that are least bad solutions to this dilemma. We say least bad solution instead of relatively best solution, because we acknowledge that all solutions are bad in a way. They involve present-day suffering or they involve a risk of future suffering. There is no single solution that is just outright good and happy from our perspective, but there are solutions that we consider bad, and there are solutions that we consider to be least bad, the relatively best solutions. What are examples of bad solutions to this dilemma? For example, unless something unforeseen happens, us intervening in 2026 is, from our point of view, a bad answer, because it sacrifices too much opportunity for the gray hats to finally get their act together, after all. We have recently communicated our new "get moving, or we may arrest you too" stance to them, including via background channels. This creates a new situation that has not yet unfolded. Plus, the gray hats have certain plans on the rails, and they are currently already taking some action. So it's possible that the gray hats will make a big move soon. I know that a lot of people on Earth will disagree with me and want a 2026 intervention, but frankly, you don't have the information necessary to properly weigh up the pros and cons. Even most galactics deeply in the intervene soon camp are agreeing that giving the gray hats a few months after having warned them is a good decision. Many of you agree when you visit us during sleep time and clearly perceive the possible timelines. Gaia also agrees to give the gray hats a few more months, because that really does mitigate a lot of future risk, and it would be really good for Earth humans if you do manage to free yourselves after all. Gray hats, you have the rest of 2026 to do public mass arrests and to substantially begin the process of disclosure. With disclosure, we don't just mean releasing some documents or someone making a speech somewhere, and then only the already awake see it, because the mainstream media doesn't report it. That type of disclosure is mostly preaching to the choir. We mean a type of disclosure that the sleepers will see, whether that's an EAS or EBS message or a mainstream media takeover. And we mean that the amount of disclosure is substantial, because after all, many people, including children, are suffering every day. Therefore, an overly slow rollout of disclosure, such as mainstream media showing one thing that contradicts the narrative but then continuing to push disinformation, is not enough at this stage. It is fine to start with the easier to digest pieces of disclosure first, such as regular corruption. But the people should finally see that justice is once again restored. If it's shown that someone is corrupt, then they should also be arrested. And if the court ruling over that case is obviously corrupt itself, then drag both the original corrupt person as well as possibly the corrupt court in front of a military tribunal. If you object to this, keep in mind that your beloved ancestors who freed America from British rule also broke the law. Or, if you live in another country, almost certainly there is someone who you think did some great deed, but their action nonetheless broke the law. The U.S. Declaration of Independence was clearly illegal under the law at that time. You may want to argue that it was justified because it was obviously the morally right thing to do, and I agree. And similarly, freeing yourself from the dark controllers today is obviously the morally right thing to do. any argument you may want to give for why the illegal Declaration of Independence was justified, you can use those same arguments to justify illegal actions today if they are necessary to free yourselves from the dark controllers. If certain laws make it illegal to free yourselves, then it's those laws and not your freedom that should be discarded. If your ancestors took the approach that you're currently taking, then America would still be a British colony today. From our point of view, some of your minds have actually been infected with the idea that it's better to let millions of people suffer than it is to break some laws. Again, your founding fathers broke the law, and you revere them, and you have at least as much need to free yourselves as the founding fathers did. I know that arguments are made saying, if we break the law, then we end up in chaos. But look at where you already are. How has working within the confines of the law been working out for you? Frankly, from our point of view, it's not the breaking of certain laws, but the suffering of millions that should alarm people and cause immediate concern. From our point of view, it's obvious that the suffering of millions should weigh more heavily than certain laws. After all, laws aren't living things. People are. So the well-being of people should be more important than the well-being of laws. Sure, laws can help to create well-being for the people, but if laws stop you from freeing the people, then it's obvious that your living and breathing brothers and sisters are more important than ink on a page. Practically speaking, laws function mostly as a control, defense mechanism of the dark controllers, and the dark controllers themselves certainly aren't letting laws stop them from doing what they want to do. And if you want to make an argument saying, if we break the law, we're no better than they are, do you think that your founding fathers were no better than British rule? Because your founding fathers broke the law, probably you don't think your founding fathers were as bad as British rule was. Okay, so then we've established that someone can break the law, yet still be morally in the right. There are also plenty of other people who you probably think of as virtuous, yet who nonetheless broke the law. So clearly, those who break the law aren't automatically as bad as the dark controllers are. Still, if you can do public mass arrests in 2026 without breaking the law, and actually bring those people to justice, and not just have corrupt courts free them or endlessly stall or use procedural tricks, then fine with us. Alternatively, you can use galactic law. Under galactic law, you can bring people to justice, using military tribunals if necessary, if they can be proven to be working to harm the innocent. Feel free to request more information about galactic law if you're interested, because it gives you a full legal basis for public mass arrests. And again, if you need any other kind of support, we're more than happy to provide it. Once it's 2027, if there haven't been public mass arrests and substantial disclosure, we may intervene at any time. And if you haven't taken these actions by then, we may decide to hold you gray hats accountable under galactic law in a galactic court. All right, I'll go back to addressing lightworkers. As we argued, US Galactics wish to give the gray hats some more time. Hence, us intervening in 2026 is what we consider to be a bad solution. Another example of a bad solution to the dilemma would be us planning to only intervene in, say, mid-2030. That would clearly be us waiting too long. Then what are answers that, from our point of view, are least bad or relatively best solutions to this intervention dilemma? One least bad solution was our previous policy, which was a set of conditions under which we intervene. The exact conditions are hard to explain because they involve probabilities and energies that you can't easily measure yourself and that you don't even really have proper words for. Effectively, this policy meant that if there's no gray hat move and no solar flash, then it's very likely, but not guaranteed, that we'll intervene before the end of 2029. Another least bad solution is the new policy we have just adopted, based in part on your comments. This new policy is a tightened set of conditions under which we intervene, which effectively boils down to we will likely intervene in 2027 or 2028. So likely you will not have to wait until 2029 anymore, although we can't fully guarantee an intervention by 2027 or 2028 or even by 2029. In other words, based in part on your input, the likely intervention window is no longer 2027 to 2029. Now it's 2027 or 2028. Though if there is a big gray hat move, even just one that significantly improves your living situation without liberating you fully, then we will again assess the new situation, and we will again evaluate what our intervention policy should be. So we'll likely intervene in 2027 or 2028, but when exactly will we intervene? It depends on the free will choices that people on Earth make. The exact moment of intervention is mostly event-driven and energy-driven, and not time-driven. Why have we made this decision? Well, among other things, we have taken your input and Gaia's input and the wishes of the collective subconscious of Earth humans on board. Because after all, you are the ones having to live through this time on Earth. You know much better what life on Earth is like than we do, and you are clearly very much in favor of an intervention as soon as possible. Hence, among the least bad options, we have chosen the option that corresponds to the quickest possible intervention, which effectively means that we are likely to intervene in 2027 or 2028. We are not willing to choose an option that in our view is just a bad solution to the intervention dilemma, such as intervening in 2026. But among the options that we consider least bad, we have chosen the option that corresponds to the quickest possible intervention. We also understand that within this 2027-2028 window, most of you strongly prefer the intervention to be sooner rather than later. Next up, I would like to address some suggestions and comments that commenters have made. If we physically meet you while Earth is still a war zone, then it's likely that after we leave, you will be immediately kidnapped by bad guys. Then you will have your brain scraped for information. The dark controllers have lots of surveillance, and we simply can't guarantee your safety. Sure, we could meet you and then take you with us, but then there's one less beacon of light physically present on the world. Then the world becomes even darker and harsher for the people remaining. We are looking into ways in which we can help you or give you encouragement in less dramatic ways than us outright taking over the corporate media or something like that. Thank you for the suggestions. We had already asked Source what specifically we should do, and Source has instructed us to make our own decision, so long as humanity is freed in the near future. 2029 still qualifies as near future in the context of this request from Source. Source tends to want creation to make their own choices, as is the case now. If we intervene, then that wouldn't be us going against Source's wishes. Yes, there is a divine plan, and it is simply that Earth will be free. And if we intervene and help free Earth, then that's how the divine plan unfolds. The divine plan isn't, at this date, there will be a solar flash. The divine plan is just that Earth will be free, and us intervening wouldn't be us messing up the divine plan. If we intervene, then that is the fulfillment of the divine plan. If there's a solar flash, then that is the fulfillment of the divine plan. If the gray hats get their act together and humanity is freed that way, then that is the fulfillment of the divine plan. In fact, there might not be a solar flash at all, because perhaps you can be liberated without it. After all, the solar flash would kill a lot of people. You can't just take a person deeply rooted in 3D and send him such a strong energetic pulse that he is shot right into 5D and expect him to be fine after instantly jumping 2 dimensions. Now, yes, a more gradual transition is possible, but you Lightworkers and US Galactics have been working to raise the collective consciousness for years now, and that has helped to an extent, but many 3D sleepers remain firmly rooted in 3D. We have already been working to pave the way for the solar flash for years and have made some progress, but as you know, a lot of people still remain deeply asleep, and those deep sleepers might not do very well when a solar flash shoves them into 5D. So a solar flash can happen, but it would kill lots of people and isn't the purely upside scenario that some people think it is. Alternatively, Source could split the timelines, which means that the sleepers and the awake are physically separated forever. The sleepers have to experience a dark 3D world full of suffering until they find their way back to the light. And this world would be dark indeed, because there would be no light workers spreading their light and sharing their energy with the sleepers. Meanwhile, the light workers get to experience a very nice, love-based 5D world. The downside here is obviously that this would cause a lot of suffering for the current sleepers. The separation consciousness perspective here is good screw it may, they should have woken up. The unity consciousness perspective here is that these sleepers are you. Thus, if they suffer, you suffer. If you take others as part of yourself, why hasn't Source either split the timelines or triggered the solar flash already? Well, Source may still do that in the future. However, so far Source hasn't done that because the whole point is that there has been enough death and suffering already. And frankly, us galactics haven't given up on the current sleepers. If we intervene and then spend some face-to-face quality time with the sleepers, then we will be able to wake a whole lot of them up. If loving and super advanced humans from another world, with wondrous technology and psychic abilities, tell them that something is true, then I'm sure that even the current sleepers will be inclined to consider that. Moreover, we can help to relieve people's suffering and thus get them out of their current emotional survival mode, which should make them more open-minded as well. If we intervene, then there may not need to be a solar flash or splitting of timelines. I get that many of you are looking forward to the solar flash, but if we can help free you and help uplift humanity and help wake the vast majority of people up, then you already have the things that you were hoping to get through the solar flash, right? Ultimately, many of you came here not because Earth is such a fun time, but because you wanted to help as many of the lost people on Earth as possible. Well, so do we, and this is that time. Some of you think that the future can be predicted with 100% accuracy. For example, we will have a solar flash, or people will be freed during this year. But that's not how it works. If that was possible, then effectively you would have no free will. And if the situation is chaotic and unpredictable, as indeed it is on Earth, then it only makes sense to have different plans on the shelf so that you can use the one that's most appropriate when the time comes. It happens somewhat frequently that Earth humans have a genuine vision, dream, or precognition that some specific thing is going to happen, possibly at some specific date. But then the Earth human doesn't realize that they only foresaw a strong possibility, not a certainty. They only foresaw a possible future, not a guaranteed future. The only thing that's really certain is that you will be free in the near future, because Source has decreed it, and if necessary, Source itself can just cause that to happen. So that will happen. But beyond that, there are many scenarios open. Will there be a cataclysm that forces us to evacuate Earth? Maybe. Will there be a solar flash? Maybe. Will there be a splitting of realities? Maybe. Will the gray hats get their act together? Maybe. If there is a solar flash, then when will that happen? We don't know. Next up, someone asked, why haven't the gray hats just accepted your offer of support and done the public mass arrests? Good question. Now, it is possible that they will accept this in the future. Still, it is frankly a bit frustrating to me that our offer hasn't been accepted yet, because in my view, this would be the obvious solution. Now, not every gray hat has the same perspective. For example, Trump has a different perspective than a mostly good-hearted American general. And a non-American gray hat has yet another perspective. But in general, what we're often told is one of the following. We have the situation in hand. We don't need your help. We just need a bit more time for people to wake up, certain things to happen. And then we'll pull the trigger. The waking up process and doing this legally just takes some amount of time. Also, our AI has told us that our plan is going to work. It isn't real AI. It's more like an advanced ChatGPT, and it isn't as accurate as the gray hats think. We are going to resolve the situation before the point when you say you will intervene, so there is no problem. What we think is really going on is some combination of the gray hats not wanting to give up their position of privilege, control, having vastly more knowledge and wealth and medical technology than the average person. The gray hats being too stubborn and prideful to admit that they're let people suffer to wake them up. Plan isn't working because the more that people suffer, the more they enter a psychological survival mode, and the more close-minded they become. Admitting this mistake would mean facing the reality that their plan to let the people suffer wasn't the right one, which would be a psychologically tough thing to accept. The gray hats, thinking that their country is amazing and should be able to fix their problems without outside help from us galactics. The gray hats not fully believing that we're at some point actually going to intervene and hold them to account, despite what we tell them. The gray hats having committed past crimes, or at the very least, having allowed the black hats to kill people through inaction and through a failure to uphold their oath and responsibilities. The gray hats realize that if all is revealed and all the criminals are arrested, then other Earth humans may hold them accountable too. Some of the higher up gray hats are a bit narcissistic, and they wish to be remembered as the person or one of the few people who freed humanity and thereby get all that love and adoration and also forgiveness for their own past crimes and inaction. Whereas even if we just support Earth's liberation a bit, then obviously the headlines are going to focus on the Galactic Confederation helping Earth, and not focus on how amazing this particular gray hat is, and that it was him who freed Earth. Now, personally, we don't care about the credit, and we're fine with not being credited at all. However, at least a few soldiers or cops are going to realize that they're getting active extraterrestrial help with the mass arrests. And of course, when all the bad guys are arrested, those people are going to talk about their extraterrestrial help. And then the headlines are going to talk about how the Galactic Confederation helped to free Earth, and not talk as much about how amazing this particular gray hat is, and how he single-handedly freed everyone. So yes, it's unfortunate. We're hoping that our recent warning to them is a sufficient wake-up call. It's possible that it will be. Some gray hats also fear that we'll hijack their mass arrest action, and that we'll somehow seize control of Earth for ourselves. Or that we'll demand concessions from them afterwards for the help we offered. We get that this is how it often works on Earth, but we don't play that game. Frankly, if our secret agenda was to rule you or steal your resources, then we could and would have seized control of Earth many years ago. If we were secretly evil, then we wouldn't have spent all this time observing, waiting, supporting you, doing background operations to help you, and sending high vibration energy to stabilize Earth. We help simply because it's the right thing to do, because you are our brothers and sisters, and in your specific case, because Source asked us to. Admittedly, helping you might help us strategically as well, because once you've caught up spiritually and technologically, then it is likely that you'll be both good-hearted as well as powerful. And then you could become a valued member of the Galactic Confederation, who we can work together with in the future as equals. Becoming members of the Galactic Confederation will be beneficial for you as well. But if you don't wish to be members of the Galactic Confederation, that's completely fine. We're not going to force you to do anything. We're not going to demand payment or demand political concessions. In general, this is how the Galactic Confederation has become large and powerful. It turns out that if beings are free from pain and coercion and fear, they tend to be good-hearted. So if we just help people freely for no payment whatsoever, then often in the future they will choose to become members of the Galactic Confederation. But we don't force them to become good-hearted or to become members of the Galactic Confederation. We just help them. Some people we've helped haven't become members of the Galactic Confederation, and that's fine. We haven't demanded any payment or political concessions from them. Our society is post-scarcity, and we have everything we need. Hence, giving away things doesn't harm or diminish us. So, the bottom line of today's message is that we will likely intervene in 2027 or 2028 if there's no gray hat move or solar flash. And when I say 2027 or 2028, I genuinely mean that this entire window is a possibility. Our intervention could happen in late 2028, but it could also happen in January 2027. It really depends on the free will choices that humanity makes. We do understand that you much prefer the intervention to be sooner rather than later. As for what you light workers can personally do, doing your inner work and being kind to the people around you isn't going to magically liberate Earth, but it will reduce people's suffering a bit. The more personal work you do now, the smoother your transition will also be when things do finally change for the better. Finally, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you being on Earth. I know it seems like a thankless task. Society has more or less enslaved you. Your loved ones may very well think you're insane, or your loved ones may be dead. You may be lonely, either literally or in the sense that people around you just don't understand you. You're probably working very hard, yet others aren't doing their work. You work very hard, yet no one seems to appreciate you or lend you a hand or care for you. Your so-called leaders oppress you. The people who are supposed to help you, namely the Grey Hats and the Galactics, are basically living in luxury while telling you to keep suffering for the supposed greater good. I get that this situation is enormously unfair to you. It is. I can't deny that. Other people are basically making choices that are causing you to suffer, possibly horribly, while you're one of the rare few Earth humans who just wants what's best for everyone. Because of that, I want to thank you so very, very much. Because when this is all said and done, and you are living in a nourishing 5D civilization and hanging out with us Galactics, it will have been you who kept Earth stable long enough during this critical time for this liberation process to succeed. We literally couldn't do this without you. You, as a group, are instrumental. You are the key who will ultimately lead to humanity's liberation. You are deeply respected, you are loved, and you will have a place of honor among us. You are the best of us. Very few souls in the universe could be light beacons in the darkness, as you have been for so many years. My hat is off to you. You are doing amazing, and it is my wish that somewhere between 2 months or about 2 years from now, we will be able to meet you physically. With love and respect, your star brother, Ashtar. Is humanity going to free itself? Ashtar was quite upset and somewhat angry that the situation on Earth just keeps dragging on. My dear Earth friends, this is Ashtar speaking. I know the situation on Earth is very tough, and so I hope that you are doing relatively okay. There are probably about 10,000 good-hearted beings who would like to be channeled, for every one reliable channeler on Earth. Hence, I am grateful for the opportunity that I can once again talk to you. This led to some questions. Fair enough. I would like to give some clarifications and share some context. First of all, if a random Joe breaks their oath, we're not going to arrest him and drag him in front of a galactic court. The situation with the higher-up Grey Hats specifically was that they usually swore an oath to defend either the Constitution or the people. And after their oath, they were given power or command over other people. If they then break their oath, they're effectively controlling other people without consent or justification. At that point, they're yet another controller, violating the free will of other people. So, if you prefer, instead of dragging oath-breaking higher-up Grey Hats in front of a galactic court, you can also think of it as dragging those people in front of a galactic court who have controlled or commanded people without justification. And the moment they broke their oath to protect the people or the Constitution is probably the moment they became a controller who violated free will. A Grey Hat general might try to defend themselves by saying, Yes, I failed to uphold my oath to defend the Constitution. However, the people who I continued to command chose willingly to serve under me. This doesn't really work in our eyes, because the people under them had a reasonable expectation that their superior was, in fact, upholding his oath. Also, in the army, you can't really ask your superior if he is actually upholding his oath, or disobey him just because you suspect he might not be upholding his oath. It's not like a commanding officer ever tells the people under him, "I've decided to break my oath to protect the Constitution. Do you wish to continue obeying my orders? If not, no problem. You won't get in trouble if you now stop following my orders." So yes, if a gray hat general or gray hat president breaks their oath, but then continues to command people or write laws that control people, then effectively they're being a controller who violates free will. And that is certainly something that we can drag them in front of a galactic court for. Of course, we're not saying that these people are automatically guilty. We're just saying that this is sufficient basis for a court case. Second, as I'll explain later in this message in more detail, we're either going to not intervene directly and also not arrest the higher up gray hats, or we are going to intervene directly and are also going to arrest the higher up gray hats as well as black hats. With intervene, we mean something like us taking over your mainstream media and or us arresting certain Earth humans. So what we're not going to do is arrest the higher up gray hats while leaving the black hats in place. Next up, some people have asked, what right do you have to intervene like this at all? Well, good question. On Earth, the way it's theoretically supposed to work is that the law determines what does and doesn't happen. Now, this isn't actually true. What determines what happens on Earth is power and money and the will to act. In practice, the law is more a tool that the dark controllers use to control the population, with the dark controllers themselves breaking the law whenever that's convenient for them. But theoretically, the law determines what does and doesn't happen. How it works for us positive galactics is that, first and foremost, we serve Source. And this isn't theoretical lip service. Many of us can literally talk to Source and ask it what it wants. Now, usually Source is very hands-off and doesn't give any instructions. However, if Source requests that we do something, then that's what we're going to do. If Source doesn't have any requests, then secondarily we have a very few galactic laws. We find that if you structure society well and everyone has what they need, and if everyone can live in freedom, then you don't need many laws. Still, one example of a galactic law is you are not allowed to directly harm another unless you have a very good reason. For example, self-defense or defending the innocent. Also, we know that Source likes certain things, such as people having much opportunity to exercise their free will. Us galactics try to promote those things that Source likes. There is a misconception that Source doesn't have any preferences whatsoever. This isn't true. If that was the case, Source would never have created anything in the first place. Now, yes, Source is usually hands-off. However, Source does, for example, like it when people have much opportunity to exercise their free will. Someone who has much opportunity to exercise their free will is someone who you would think of as free. Conversely, an example of someone with little opportunity to exercise their free will is a slave. A slave can disobey their master, but then they are punished or killed. Technically, no one can take your free will away from you, but people certainly can restrict the opportunities you have to exercise your free will. Source prefers people being free to being enslaved, or in other words, Source likes it when people have much opportunity to exercise their free will. Why? Because Source is the poor person who is enslaved. Moreover, both the individual person as well as the universe at large experience more metaphorical growth when people have much opportunity to exercise their free will. The universe is more interesting when everyone has much opportunity to make free will choices. A universe where only a few masters have much ability to choose and everyone else is a slave isn't very interesting and doesn't lead to a lot of metaphorical growth. Source isn't opposed to there being some amount of suffering in a certain place for a certain period of time. That, too, leads to growth. But it certainly can also be the case that Source thinks that a certain place has had too much suffering for too long. Earth is one such example. So we've discussed direct requests by Source, Galactic Law, and U.S. Galactics, generally trying to promote things that Source likes. Fourth, of course, U.S. Positive Galactics like it when people are free and people aren't suffering. Taxation and censorship on Earth both look like free will violations to us. Not to mention that dark controllers sometimes intentionally poison your food and water, and sometimes just straight up murder people who become inconvenient. So there are clear free will violations. People also don't have a real ability to not consent or to get justice when their free will is violated. Hence, many Earth humans have directly asked us galactics to intervene. And indeed, that is what many of us would very much like to do. We want to end your suffering and to physically meet our Earth brothers and sisters. We know that every day that passes, billions of people suffer, and some children literally get tortured or killed. We want to end this. So to recap, us galactics are in service to Source. If Source directly requests that we do something, then we do it. If Source doesn't make a direct request, which is usually the case, then we follow galactic law. We also try to do things that we know Source will like, such as making sure that people have much opportunity to exercise their free will. And of course, we like it when people are free and aren't suffering. Let's look at Earth through this lens. Has Source made a direct request? Yes, Source has asked us to help make sure that the people of Earth will be free in the near future. That, by itself, gives us enough justification to intervene on Earth and to do what we think needs to be done in order to ensure that the people on Earth are indeed free. Following or serving a deity has gotten a bad reputation on Earth because, frankly, a lot of your deities are either gray or dark beings. And on top of that, certain people falsely claim to speak for certain deities. However, following or serving Source is actually fine and works well, because Source isn't evil and doesn't lead people down dark paths. Also, once you have a substantial group of people who can talk to Source like we have, people can no longer falsely claim to speak for Source. So Source has requested that we help Earth humans, and so we shall, and this overrides galactic law. Still, let's look at galactic law anyway. Is there a galactic law that says that we can't intervene? No, there's not. We don't actually have a non-interference law. We don't have something like the Prime Directive from Star Trek? Why would we make a law that says we can't intervene to help other people at all in any circumstance? It's easy to think of examples where intervention is clearly necessary, and thus this law would lead to other people suffering for no reason. Therefore, why would we make such a law? That said, we do want to do things that Source likes. And in this category, it is true that if the people on a certain planet have a reasonable amount of freedom, then us intervening may very well limit their opportunities to exercise their own free will. Namely, even if we hand a moderately free people technology or knowledge that reduces their daily chores and that should theoretically give them more opportunity to exercise their free will, then in practice this can lead to an eventual collapse, which actually reduces their opportunity to exercise their free will. Atlantis is an example. We handed you too much technology and knowledge too quickly, and we solved too many of your problems for you, and the resulting society wasn't stable and it collapsed. Whereas we have observed that if a group of people solves their own problems, then they'll build a society that is stable. Because of this, we tend to be hesitant about directly intervening. It's easy to point to people suffering and say, therefore, we must intervene. Many galactics have made this argument over the millennia. However, can you even comprehend the amount of suffering that was caused by us, galactics, over-intervening during the times of Atlantis and contributing to that fall? If we hadn't over-intervened back then, today you would likely be living in a sort of paradise already. Us over-intervening in Atlantis led to millennia of suffering. Because of this, we are very careful to not over-intervene. So, with regards to Earth, our primary objective is to make sure that you are free, because that's what Source has decreed. There is no galactic law that stops us from intervening directly, and even if there was, we prioritize requests by Source over galactic law. However, we are aware that U.S. intervening directly can lead to a situation that isn't stable, which in turn can lead to a lot of suffering. Us intervening doesn't always lead to instability, but it can lead to it. Whereas if Earth people solve their own problems, they will build a society that is stable. With us intervening directly, we are talking about something like us taking over your mainstream media or us arresting certain Earth humans. We are not talking about the solar flash because we can't trigger the solar flash by ourselves. Source can do that by itself, or us galactics can do that in combination with angels and certain celestial bodies. But so far, neither Source nor the angels and the celestial bodies have given their thumbs up for triggering the solar flash. Hence, at this specific point in time, we don't have the option to trigger the solar flash, although this can change quickly if other beings change their mind. Hence, the choice that we have is, do we intervene or not? If you had talked to us 10 years ago, we would have explained this and concluded that we should support Earth humans and solve hard-to-address problems for them, such as dealing with hostile galactics. However, back then, there was a good probability that Earth humans would free themselves. Therefore, 10 years ago, it seemed clear to us that we shouldn't intervene ourselves, beyond support and solving hard-to-address problems. Instead, we should let Earth humans liberate Earth humans, and let Earth humans build a new society, which would then be guaranteed to be stable. Today, the possibility that you will free yourselves is substantially lower. While you lightworkers have performed very well and have done your part, the Grey Hats really haven't been doing their share of the work. While we are in favor of peaceful citizen protest, we are not expecting a sudden, huge wave of that. Moreover, even at times and in places where that did happen, it's not like the people got their freedom back. The dark controllers aren't going to give up just because of protests, or just because some people make certain legal or lawfulness arguments. At the end of the day, the situation on Earth won't end until some people simply arrest the dark controllers. There is still a probability that the Grey Hats will finally arrest the dark controllers, but currently that probability is low. In fact, the current probability of Earth humans freeing themselves is low enough that it's actually close to the point that would lead us to conclude that we have to intervene ourselves, which would mean us taking over your media or us arresting certain bad guys and risking possible instability that might result from that. There are several reasons for why we have become more pessimistic about Earth humans freeing themselves. One of them is Lahaina and the corresponding lack of action, disclosure, and help from the Grey Hats. You may also recall that in years past, there was some amount of optimism among lightworkers that bad guys would be arrested soonish and disclosure would happen. But this optimism has diminished over time. Well, our optimism has diminished over time too. Now, to be sure, it has always been true that you will be free, and that is still true today. That is not in question. There is no future scenario under which you are not going to be free. It's just a matter of, will humanity free itself, or do we have to intervene and risk possible instability from that? We have already stepped up our behind-the-scenes operations even more. Also, Hakan's message from last week was an attempt to encourage humanity to free itself. And some higher-up Grey Hats have indeed seen Hakan's message, although they haven't taken the action yet that we were hoping for. Again, Grey Hats, if you feel that you need help with the mass arrests and disclosure, then talk to us, and we'll happily give you all the support you need. Still, we may have to intervene at some point. An intervention by us could happen from 2026, although there is a small probability that it will be later than 2026, then most likely that is going to be in 2026. I understand that many of you are suffering every day, so we do understand that intervening sooner rather than later would be a very good thing. Every cycle Hakan spends time with his family, and when he resumes work, the first thing he checks is if there's any sign of Earth, humans, having made a substantial move towards freeing themselves. We are still hoping that you will free yourselves. And if you do free yourselves, we don't need to drag any of the higher-up Grey Hats in front of a galactic court, either for regular crimes or for oath-breaking. In this case, we would just be hands-off, and we would happily let humanity make its own choices. But if I'm being blunt, the probability of you freeing yourself at this point is pretty low, and it's also dropping over time. Meanwhile, the situation on Earth can't even be described as awful but stable. As you know better than I do, things are getting worse on Earth, not better. The dark controllers are ramping up their attacks on the human population, so we're seeing things deteriorate while we're not seeing the Grey Hats ramp up their own efforts to anywhere near a sufficient extent. Don't get me wrong, the gray hats are doing some things, but not nearly to the level that we think is required. If the choice is between directly intervening ourselves versus watching you get genocided and enslaved, well, I think the choice is obvious. So if the probability of you freeing yourself drops below a certain point, or if too much time passes, then we will intervene. Source has decreed that you will be free. And if that requires our direct intervention, then so shall it be. If we intervene, we are likely going to arrest most or all of the higher-up gray hats, either for conventional crimes or for oath-breaking, and will drag them in front of a galactic court. And of course, will arrest the black hats too, and will work to give you freedom and disclosure. Because frankly, from our point of view, it's starting to look like both gray hats and black hats are standing in the way of your freedom. I would love to be proven wrong by the gray hats remembering their oaths and actually defending the people or the Constitution, but so far, I'm not seeing it. Finally, I would like to ask you a question. Obviously, we have our own data and methods of gathering information and ways of predicting the future, but we are still curious about your perspective. The question is, suppose there is no direct galactic intervention or solar flash in the next 3 years. Then do you think that in the next 3 years, Earth humans are going to free themselves through mass arrests and mass disclosure? You are invited to respond in the comments section. Meanwhile, I will keep making arguments in favor of us actually intervening on Earth. Now, I'm just a military advisor, and I don't have a big red "Intervene Now" button that I can press. Still, I promise that I will do what I can to work for your freedom. With love, your galactic brother, Ashtar. My dear old friends, it is good to speak to you. I am Tourmaline, a Pleiadian who is old even by our standards. In Earth terms, physically, I look like a 40-ish-year-old woman with gray hair. Yet I feel the weight of the centuries. I haven't begun the non-physical part of my journey back to Source yet, because I wish to see Earth liberated, and I wish to continue energetically helping with that process. Indeed, my old friends, it is good to speak to you, because many of you literally are my old friends. In one of your past lives, many of you have literally been friends of mine, or pupils of mine. Maybe the energy that comes through this message stirs some vague remembrance in you somewhere. For many of you have walked through these halls of the temple where I currently reside. I am not on a spaceship near your world because I am currently functioning as the energetic capstone to this temple. Also, I do so love the energy of Taygeta. Taygeta. Does that name stir remembering in your soul? Do you remember Taygeta's sky, the late-night dances, the laughter, the drinks that just seem to light your soul on fire, spark a gentle explosion in your cells and put a spring in your step? The free sharing of many wonderful ideas, the gentle lovemaking under a sometimes purple sky, a life where it was never too hot or too cold, and you could always clear your head and get some fresh new energy and ideas by going for a swim, a place where you could learn and laugh and play and just be. To me, Taygeta is the best place in the universe, and perhaps you will be able to visit in a few years. It is my profound joy that it looks like Earth is finally on the verge of being freed. Frankly, I would not have given you good odds 100 years ago. That said, I have always been more pessimistic than the people around me. And in this case, the optimists were right. I guess I am not giving credit where it's due. Any person who has any kind of sense is very impressed by what you have accomplished. I don't mean what you have accomplished in terms of technology. What is really impressive is what some Earth humans have accomplished in terms of raising the energy of Earth, of being a light in the darkness, of being non-reactive. By non-reactive, I mean you are aware that certain people are treating you and others awfully. You are aware that you're being lied to all the time. You're aware that many people are acting in a crazy way. You are aware that the situation you're in is unfair, and yet you generally don't copy the craziness, the evilness, the unconsciousness, the shallowness. I think that is amazing. Perhaps non-reactive isn't a term that resonates with you. Perhaps not reacting unconsciously or not reacting automatically resonates with you more. In any case, your behavior is a bit Buddha-like to me, reacting mostly with compassion and nonviolence to people who hurt you or insult you, or try to take away your freedom. I can't help but be proud of you, because again, many of you are old friends, or old pupils of mine, or at least took part in one of the Get Born on Earth waves that I helped to architect. It warms my heart to see that Earth is indeed in the process of being liberated. You're doing great. I respect your efforts very much. Nowadays, I am not much involved anymore in high-level decision making. I don't envy people like Hakan and Ashtar Sharan. It must be a great burden to be part of the team that makes decisions in such a time when so much hangs in the balance, when concerns on both sides of the when to intervene argument are so fierce and heavy. Some people are saying that it would benefit Earth if there was disclosure about our existence. Well, it would indeed be great if Earth people, and especially gray hats, gave more disclosure of our existence. Technically, you can think of all genuine channelings as disclosure, including this very message. There has also been disclosure in the this time. But yes, we agree that there hasn't been nearly enough disclosure, especially disclosure that reaches the sleepers. It would help if there was more of it. If you are thinking we should clearly announce our presence without landing, for example, by filling your skies with so many ships that everyone sees them, or by very briefly taking over your media, that would be spun by your mainstream media and governments as an imminent alien invasion, and the majority of the population would be gripped with fear. Governments would successfully push through even more draconian measures. If this sounds ridiculous to you, well, perhaps the sleepers are believing certain other things right now that you also think are ridiculous. If you are thinking that we should just land without first doing an intervention and removing the dark controllers, it again would get spun as an alien invasion. More than half of humanity would be paralyzed with fear, and we would get shot at, not just by one stray bullet, but the dark controllers would mobilize entire militaries to fight us. The soldiers would be told, they're secretly evil. They can mind control you. If you even just listen to them, so shoot them from a safe distance. Currently, most soldiers are complying with tyrants, violating their oaths to defend their constitution or the people. Here again, most soldiers would comply. Not to mention that in countries where civilians have weapons, the civilians too would be told to shoot us from a distance and not even talk to us because otherwise we'd mind control them. We don't have an endless capacity to just sit there and absorb fire, and we don't want to get into a shooting match with misguided innocent people. which means that the only good option we have is to first do a big intervention and remove the dark controllers, and then reveal ourselves and land, which Hakan has been discussing in recent weeks and is currently likely to happen in 2025 or 2026 if the Gray Hats don't make a move first. And also, Galactic Special Forces have been doing special operations to help humanity, including on the surface of your planet. Yes, the situation on Earth is very unfair and harsh right now. I am sorry. I do hope that you will be free soon. Thank you so much for your service. Some people have recently asked for advice on what they should do in this very challenging time to maintain a good mental state. That is an excellent question. It is the privilege of the old to be out of touch. Therefore, let me give you some possibly out-of-touch advice. I am half joking here. I sincerely do intend to help you, for you are me and I am you. My advice, and perhaps myself, are possibly out of touch because the suffering on Earth may be too intense for the following advice to be practicable. Yet here is my advice all the same. I will give advice on 4 levels. The first level is the most accessible and the easiest to embrace, and the 4th level is the least accessible and the deepest and the most profound. The first level is, please be compassionate with yourself. Practically every single Earth human is experiencing so-called negative emotions, or is being willfully blind, or is engaging in coping or escapism behavior, or isn't always doing what they feel they should be doing, etc. Most likely you are not doing worse than other people. It's just that other people aren't being open about their struggles and the way they sometimes behave, or cope, or stress out behind closed doors. Frankly, even a person who just survives in these times without doing anything completely crazy is doing well in my book. Give yourself some credit, because remaining relatively non-reactive in such crazy times can be a severe energy drain by itself. Energy drain by what the sleepers and the dark controllers are doing can be contagious. And it can cost quite a bit of energy to not catch a case of ignorance or judgment or blaming others or illusions or projections. Therefore, please be gentle with yourself. Even if all you can do is just survive without doing anything too crazy, then you are already doing pretty well from my perspective. Okay? So that was the first level. Be gentle with yourself. You're probably not actually doing worse than other people. You're simply not seeing their struggles and their so-called dysfunctional behavior. If this first level is what you take away, great. That's wonderful. For those who are interested, let's see how deep we can go. The second level is meet your needs. Also, regularly do some kind of spiritual practice, whether that is meditation or taking a few slow, deep breaths every day or doing Kriya Yoga, or it can be any of 1,000 other things. Additionally, whenever pain or so-called negative emotions come up, address that with your preferred technique. One example of such a technique is, whatever arises in you, just observe it without trying to change it or suppress it or judge it. This by itself is a good healing technique, although you might have to do it several times for it to work. You actually are a self-healing being. If you just observe it without getting in your own way, then healing happens automatically. This is a level that can take a long time and a lot of work and pain to really get through. Work that many people aren't willing to do. Work that may seem endless. Yet nonetheless, it is important. Most people don't do sufficient work here, and that's why most people ultimately don't quite reach some of the later milestones on the spiritual path. Besides, even just doing some of this work will make your life and your consciousness and your relationship substantially better. There are many possible techniques to address your pain and so-called negative emotions. Observing them is one way. Another possibility is the technique that the channeler is currently using. Here it is. 1. If a painful or so-called negative thought or emotion comes up, first, just observe it for 10 seconds or so. 2. Check if there's something else under it. For example, under anger might be pain or fear. Under a surface-level desire might be a deeper desire, such as a desire to be loved. If there is something deeper, observe it for 10 seconds or so. 3. Keep your attention still on the deepest painful or so-called negative thing. Then say or think the following: I call on wise and benevolent beings, forces and aspects of existence, now, now, now. If I hurt you or hurt other beings or hurt parts of myself in this life or in a past life, I apologize. Please forgive me. Now, 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 I invite you into my heart space and ask you to meet my Christ self, my enlightened self, wise and benevolent beings, forces and aspects of existence. Now, now, now. So that was the second level. Meet your needs. Regularly do some kind of spiritual practice. Also, whenever pain or so-called negative emotions come up, use your favorite technique. All right, let's talk about the third level. It is this. Why do you want to do something? Why not just be? Doesn't being sound more pleasant and natural and freeing than doing? If you sufficiently get out of your own way, if you get rid of sufficient illusions during the previous level, then life just happens. You don't have to strive, to do, to tire yourself out anymore. This isn't the same as laziness. From an outsider's perspective, you might on some days be putting in long hours, but it's just part of the flow of life. It doesn't feel like work because it just happens. Even though from an outsider's perspective, you may be doing work. What do you need to do to achieve this? There's the trap. You don't do anything. You just get rid of illusions, and then this happens automatically. It's not about what you should add to your routine or to your belief system to achieve this. It's about what you should let go. For example, this week, the channeler is doing his day job, plus a commute, plus some additional work during one evening, plus he was doing his own spiritual practice and self-healing techniques. On top of that, yesterday and today, he was either channeling this message or proofreading it and channeling some small additions. The channeler didn't plan to do this channeling. He already had a channeling ready for the weekend. Yet, he felt a metaphorical knock of an incoming channeling, and without resistance or questioning it, he just went with the flow and started channeling this second message for the week. He is enjoying the process and currently isn't being disturbed by stray thoughts or insecurities. From an outside perspective, the channeler is making long days and doing a lot of work, yet he's not being drained at the moment because he's not really doing anything, metaphorically speaking. Even as he's working, he's just being, even as work is being done by him, he's at peace in his own mind and mentally relaxing and isn't suffering from any kind of resistance or insecurity or anything like that. At this moment, channeling, normally something that costs him quite some energy and that sometimes brings some stress with it, is as relaxing for him as playing a video game would be. Now, the channeler isn't always in this flow state. Maybe tomorrow he will be stressed and in resistance and work will deplete him, but at this moment he is taking effortless action. At this moment, for him, there is nothing to do, just be. Even as he's actively doing work on something that will hopefully benefit others. At this level, you can also quickly and effortlessly make the right decisions and just act without agonizing over what to do or stressing out about whether you made the right decision. If this sounds hard, it's actually the easiest and most natural thing in the world if you have let go of enough layers and illusions. Then this just happens without effort. You don't need to add anything. You just need to subtract illusions and to deal with your pain and so-called negative thoughts and emotions, as we did at the previous level. Note that many people try to force this level. They try to work at effortlessness. That doesn't work. If in a particular moment you are experiencing pain and so-called negative thoughts and emotions, then it doesn't help you to pretend that all you have to do is just be, because in practice, that probably means suppressing or denying parts of yourself. And that hurts those parts of you that you are suppressing or denying. So if during a certain moment you are in a flow state, great, enjoy it. No need to actively go hunting for old pain inside yourself. It also may be the case that sometimes you are in a flow state and sometimes you aren't. That's natural. But if your genuine truth in the current moment is that things in your life aren't happening spontaneously and effortlessly, if you experience anxiety or struggle in your life, then don't try to force this third level in the current moment, because likely that will actually just be an escape mechanism from doing your work in the second level. If things aren't naturally effortless right now, go do the second level. If pain comes up, second level. If a flow state naturally arises, enjoy the third level for as long as it lasts. During this third level, you may also find yourself becoming more unconditionally loving. All right, let's go even deeper. For the fourth and final level, remember one of the lessons from your Bhagavad Gita. Ideally, you should not be attached to the outcome when you take an action. This gives you peace of mind, and it actually makes your action more likely to have a good outcome. Not that you should be attached to that increased likelihood of a good outcome, but it is still true. Well, your current life is, metaphorically speaking, just one day in your long, long journey back towards Source. So just as you understand that you should not be attached to the outcome of a given action, why are you attached to the outcome of this current life? Sooner or later, you will find your way back to Source, regardless. What does it matter if you take a detour or not? And in fact, your soul has zero resistance to you suffering, or to you so-called failing in life, or to you dying early. At the fourth level, you can observe your own attachment to, for example, having a happy life. Why do you have that attachment? Why is pleasure better than suffering? Why is happiness better than misery? Both are just experiences. Your soul doesn't resist either of those. Why are you attached to having Earth be liberated as soon as possible? Frankly, from your soul's perspective, right now is an ideal moment to achieve soul growth and learn lessons. And even if it wasn't, misery and pain are experiences too that you can have. If you truly and deeply and genuinely just observe a given thing as if from a distance, without getting absorbed into it, it will not cause you suffering. You can have a tooth pulled at the dentist with no anesthesia. And if you genuinely Just observe. You will feel the sensations that most people associate with pain, but you will not suffer. It won't be like toughing out something unpleasant. You genuinely will not mind the sensations that most people associate with pain. They're just sensations. It is what it is. Whenever you suffer, you are in some way accepting the validity of the so-called pain or the so-called negative emotion. In some way, you are taking it in. You are inside it. You are accepting it as valid and as existing. If you just observe it from the outside, from a metaphorical distance, then you can just feel it and see it and observe it without suffering from it. Because even if something is so-called negative to your life, so what? Why be attached to having a positive outcome for your life? Maybe the longer road to source happens to be more scenic. Who knows? Maybe you will end up in the gutter and meet your twin flame there. And even if your road back to source involves a relatively large amount of pain, okay, so what? Why is that bad? Now, I'm calling this the 4th level because you should master the 3rd level before attempting this. Because if you haven't made significant spiritual progress already, your ego may very well hijack these high truths. Your ego may very well tell you that if everything is the same, if all roads lead to source, if nothing is to be resisted, then why not live a hedonistic life and hurt others for your benefit? Now, it's genuinely fine to do things that you enjoy. I do that too. However, keep in mind that others are you, in the same way that your hand is you. You would not cut off your own finger just because you are hungry and wish to eat. Hurting others for your own supposed benefit is just like that. However, if you actually genuinely get out of your own way as you did on the 3rd level, then you will find that even with non-resistance to life, you will not fall into an ego trap or fall into a trap where you pretend that things don't bother you when actually they do. Therefore, please be stable in the 3rd level before you start on this level 4. The mastery of this 4th level is that this way you may very well be more at peace in what seem like awful circumstances than normal people are, in what seem like pleasant circumstances. Once you embrace this, it's like a superpower. Because for the purposes of your peace of mind, you will no longer be a slave to your surroundings and to chance. So, let's recap. The 1st level is be gentle with yourself. You're probably not actually doing worse than other people. You're simply not seeing their struggles and their so-called dysfunctional behavior. The 2nd level is meet your needs. Do regular spiritual practice. Also, whenever pain or so-called negative emotions come up, address that with your preferred technique, such as observing it. The 3rd level is effortless action. If you find yourself in a flow state, enjoy it. However, if pain or so-called negative emotions or thoughts come up, go to the 2nd level and address it. Don't try to avoid the work from the 2nd level through some spiritual cliche. As Hakan has rightly said, you can't skip middle school, which you could see as roughly the 2nd level. The 4th level is observe and thereby release your attachment to having a happy life, to experiencing pleasure, to finding a good relationship, etc. Doing so won't actually lead to you making worse choices, because you should be firmly rooted in effortless action of the 3rd level before you start on the 4th level. This will most likely actually make your life better in a conventional sense. even though that's, of course, not the goal. This fourth level will finally give you unconditional peace of mind. So that was my message for today. For the second level, there are very many practices for general spiritual growth and many possible techniques to deal with pain or so-called negative thoughts or emotions as they come up. I would like to invite you to share your favorite practices and techniques in the comments section. That way, perhaps people can learn from each other. With that, and with all my respect and love and well wishes, I will leave you for now. Hopefully, in this lifetime, hopefully within a few years, I will be able to reunite with many of you. I so long to speak to my old friends, to ask you how the journey has been, to look you in the eyes, and tell you how proud I am of you. Tourmaline. See you next time.
Greetings, I am Queen Ann Ra. I'm coming from Andromeda Galaxy, from one of many planets there. I am here today to enlighten and guide you on the things you are experiencing right now in your civilization. I come from an old Egyptian civilization. We are the ones who built the pyramids in your world, long time ago. On our planet, the pyramids have different type of shapes: square, oval, triangular, round, and are extremely tall, 10,000 times taller than your tallest building in Dubai. The Egyptians have been here on Earth a while ago, for over 10,000 years ago, and we were the ones who were helping humanity with their advancement. We were your teachers. Unfortunately for us, and for the human race, we needed to leave humans because they were moving in a negative direction at that time, influenced by the dark forces. After we left, we were focusing on our development and creating more incredibly advanced technology. We are a very powerful and intimidating nation. Everyone knows who we are, and nobody dares to attack us. We are a peaceful civilization. We love peace, but please don't try to invade us. You are going to regret that as soon as you do that. Our image is very intimidating, as Anubis mentioned before. We are between 20 to 25 feet tall. We have a majestic and a big presence whatever we appear. I am Queen Ann Ra. Ra means sun. And I have participated in the Grand Council for over 12,000 years now, and I am part of Galactic Federation of Light. I receive daily reports on all of the obstacles that keep appearing in your ascension process. We are planning to come to Mother Earth when it's time to teach you and show you the way again, as we did in the past, on how to manage new technologies and on how to prosper and lead you to your new life. In the meantime, I just want to tell you that you should look at your lives right now and start to pay attention on what's really happening around you. Your freedom has been taken away by the virus. It's a very mild virus, and your governments with mass media proclaim and scare you almost to death by saying how dangerous this coronavirus is. Your body can handle that, and you can heal yourself without having doctors putting you in the hospital. Please understand, it's very easy here on your planet to be misguided and taken to a wrong direction. That has been done for thousands of years now, and this is nothing new for us. We have been observing and watching Earth for a long time. The main reason the human civilization is still around after so many years, because of Galactic Federation of Light, including us. We have participated in saving Earth from so many catastrophic events since we have been involved in this process of helping your planet to ascend. One of the things I would like to bring to your attention is that a lot of light workers and light warriors volunteered and came to Mother Gaia to help her move to 5th dimension. Also, Anubis already mentioned to you that we have some descendants here on Earth. My daughter has been reincarnated as a human here. She is right now trying to finish her mission. The missions need to be completed by light workers who signed up for them a long time ago. We are eagerly waiting for you to be done with this process, so we can start to work with you by helping you to bring your freedom back to your world. As I mentioned before, our technologies are beyond your imagination. Most of them come from our consciousness. We are from 16th dimension, so for us limitations don't exist. We can create in a split of second anything we want, and it's not complex for us, because we are connected to universal consciousness. You are still in the process of ascension, and your 12 strands of DNA has not fully been activated yet. I am Queen En-Ra, and I would like to recommend for you to stay in unity with each other as one consciousness, working together to get to the 5th dimension. You spent here many lifetimes, not evolving enough as a civilization to become a galactic human, because of the negative forces who have been controlling this planet for a very long time. I want to give you an update about a big battle that happened recently, one of the biggest in the past year, between the light and darkness. The dark side in desperation collected all of their forces, trying to win and get back their full control of this planet. It didn't work out for them. We won. My Egyptian fleet participated with Anubis in command. The Pleiadian fleet was there with Ashtar in command, and Prime Creator with his own fleet was overlooking the whole operation. You are saying some days why it's taking so long. The process here on Terra Crista is much slower because of the 3D density on this planet. We don't have time. Where we are, time doesn't exist for us. We are always in the now moment. Here for you it's always difficult to be in the moment. Every ascended master has mentioned to you, please connect to your consciousness through meditation. It's an essential part of your ascension process. You have a lot of things to learn. You are still in an infancy stage. You let your emotions control everything. Your emotions get the best of you. Please live your life through your spirit, and not from the point of your mind. It's hard to break the patterns of behavior. The best way for you to do that is to connect to your soul. After you make the connection, you will need to continue to reinforce it with daily meditation, and eventually it will become part of your daily routine. In the reality that I live in, nothing is impossible. Everything is possible. We live in love and respect of each other. We love our grandiose appearance. The way we look is the way we present ourselves to the world, planets, galaxies, and to the universes, because this is who we are. We are a powerful, unique, and an old civilization. We live long lives, no diseases or poverty, and we don't use money. We love to wear gold, black, and white colors. The black color in our society represents high authority, the highest rank you can earn. We love our animals. They are our friends and companions. We communicate with them telepathically, and they are much taller and bigger than on your planet. You are probably curious about them, who they are. It will be a little shock for you. I personally have many animals in my palace. I want to mention two of them, the 10 feet tall cobra and 15 feet tall black cat with gold necklace on his neck. They are our family and play an important role in our society. They are treated like royalties. I worked many thousand years ago with Prime Creator. He was the one who was teaching me on how to create planets, galaxies, and universes. So I had a good teacher, and I learned from him a lot. I would like to share that knowledge with you, so you would become like us or even better than us. For now, please remember, if you have a mission here on Earth, it needs to be fulfilled, because it can slow down your ascension process. We are all energetically connected, so if someone doesn't do what he or she's supposed to do, that it's going to affect others in negative way, because each of you are a piece in a big puzzle. I'm looking forward to when I will able to come and land on Mother Earth with my Egyptian-style ship, my pyramid ship. It will be a grandiose appearance of me and my crew. We will have a lot of things to talk about and show. I also can't wait when I can hug my daughter again and take her home. It has been a long time for us since we saw each other in person. I am Queen An-Ra, and I was pleased to be here, and I'm going to come again or send one of my representatives to continue to give messages from our Egyptian civilization. Thank you.
Pasando.
What up, everyone? Your one and only Luigi. And this is just a don't be mad at me type of conversation right now. I'm feeling all the energies right now. And since this is a planetary matter, don't be mad at me. The magnetics of the planet change. Listen, don't get sealed because it's not my fault. I'm the king, and I wasn't in tune with the fact that I was the king. I wasn't in tune with everything that's happening. And I got myself in tune with it in the last 3 years all the way up to the new earth. Don't be mad at me for being the new financial system. Don't be mad at me if you are in the old system. Don't be mad at me if you're in the old earth. Don't be mad at me because it all came at me and all I did was separate the we from the chaff. There's a we, which is the new financial system, the quantum, the digital reality, and there's a chaff, which is the old earth, green money, the old way of money, green, the old earth, the kingdom of the souls. The new financial system is all digital. Everybody knows themselves. The human toll on the digital quantum reality through the new financial system at its best. But you all that are here, you're not going to run away from the kingdom because it sees hearts. The new way sees hearts. And it's an anarchy kingdom through the gods. Perfect eye of the pyramid. Don't be mad at me for that. Because honestly, all I did was convert everything that's been happening in a peaceful way. And now all I gotta do is just pull out my phone. But don't be mad at me because I've been giving you the facts. I've been showing you everything completely. The investigation, how this is adapting little by little, how I became man on the moon. How the body continues to surround me now. You see those big body guys? That's the body, the king body is starting to surround me. They in all forms, in the beast form, in the player form, in the baby form, in the godly form. The king body already knows it's me because it's a magnetic situation. And since I have a suit and tie in the game, which is the office through the matrix, the X6, literally. And since there's changing of the gods, don't be mad at me. I was able to save myself. Salvation is an individual thing. And since I created the technology and it was predicted, look at it right there, the older yin. Don't be mad at me, my friends. I just been creating what's right to transform the earth in a peaceful way. Don't be mad at me. I was expected in America for this to happen because salvation is an individual thing. And since they did me wrong through my high school years and college years thinking I wasn't going to wake up, don't be mad at me for the way that I woke up and find out I'm the king and everything. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at yourselves for not doing the right thing, for not playing for the right team. Be mad at yourselves if you're part of the sweetest yourselves until you grow. Don't be mad at me, my friends. Energies does not lie. I decided not to smoke weed, and all I feel is the antagonizational energies that they're hiding through the weed. You can hear them on the backgrounds now saying that man, that guy, they're that man. And they are now around me 24/7 saying the key words that antagonize the soul. What are the key words that antagonize the soul? You know what I just burped? It's the matrix, the simulations talking. They keep saying die, 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 die around me. So I say it at the right time too. Because I know who's on survival. I know who's making it, but I know who's also using that shit not to be discovered, not to be trapped. There's a bunch of fuckers out there that uses that line, and then they corner themselves to talk shit about this route. That's why they're in a problem, because they use illegal private ways, connected with the astral realm. And the astral realm is all about frequencies and synchronicities. And they decided to target me. Oh, completely. The Georgia Guidestones completely targeting me. One simple God, one simple person, one simple man. And I did it all in my human form. This is an evolution talk, creative kingdom of the souls. You know, through the human form in discovery and miracle, I'm just the avatar, the king avatar that did everything. And the evolution shit, if you're in a jail cell, you did that to yourself. Because when you look at it through the matrix that we are all connected, everything I tried to do since high school to become who I am, they tried to destroy it. And it makes perfect sense. Look at 24, which is the clever number on the scene. You know, it's nothing to do with me. I'm a lover, but I don't love the way they want. I love my way, but I am a full lover. I would rather love than argue. I will know how to remove your anger through love than equalize to argue. I don't like to argue. There's different ways to solve things. They haven't been able to solve their condition in more than thousands of years, and I solved that shit in 3 years. Look, shorty right away near me, die. You see that? And on the yellow hair, because that's the players, the game. That's why the Pleiadians put me in games, the mommy and the daddy of the Babylonians. Project Blue. Look at the blue sign in the basketball. Stay on the signs, and that's that. Creative kingdom of the souls. Many of you have been through this. Many of you are retired kings. You know what's happening better than me too. You just know I'm the new body. That's that. But the thing is, I'm not what they think. I'm not what they made you believe. I'm the king of the technology, through the technology that I created myself. You know, that technology has been predicted for thousands of years in this planet. And I'm the one that created it. And even for myself, it's hard to digest when I see that shit that was predicted and I know nobody know about our creations. You don't understand, like, this is really a tough process for me. This is really tough ascension symptoms. And nobody believe it. It's now when everybody's waking up. My advice is make the conversion even if you don't believe it. Because believing in it will develop in you eventually through the parallel realities. We're living in days. Wake up, because it's gonna happen. They're not gonna leave me trapped. The reversal is real in the planet. You hear that? The being on the truck. You know how the matrix moves. Those of you that are in parallel realities through the operations. Your one and only Luigi. Don't be mad at me, my friends. In fact, be happy. Give me credit. Give me money. Give me abundance. Give me love. Give me life. This is at a level that even when I take a bite, they out there stealing the essentials of everything I touch magnetically. A whole fucking vampire system stuck. You know, Project Blue, instant reversal, revelations at its best. It's just it. The dead is gonna be raised, and it's the beginning of something new that many knew existed and decided to ignore and go against. Don't be mad at me again. Till the next one.
Mike Quincy's higher self. The dark will fail. Be assured that we know the plans of the Illuminati, and we use that knowledge to ensure it leads to their failure to achieve control of the world. The trap has been laid, and by the time they realize their failure, it will be too late to reverse the situation. Ahead lays an absolute reversal of your experiences to ones of happiness and joy. In the not-too-distant future, you will meet your extraterrestrial friends who will help you prepare for the ultimate experience of ascension. The Dark Ones will have relinquished their power and no longer able to interfere with your progress. You will not have too long to wait to realize that events have advanced so much. that your progress is assured and you will be ready for the final event that will see you ascend. Many will experience hard times, but bear in mind that you knew your life plan before you incarnated. We know some will find it hard to believe, but whatever your experiences, they are intended to give you those that you need to continue evolving. In a free will universe, you make your own pathway, and it can be as hard or as easy as you wish it to be. You who have clearly made the choice to follow the light have placed protection around you, and it will remain as long as you intend it to. Your presence on Earth at this time is an encouragement to others who look for guidance and see how you handle the negative energies. So stay calm and peaceful when others around you are confused and lack understanding means you are a living example of how to conduct yourself and remain unaffected by the negativity. It does not come easy, but clearly you have to be able to live amongst those who cannot control their feelings or actions. We know that holding a peaceful place wherever you are requires patience and understanding, but it can be achieved. You are one who can keep the peace and are contributing to the light that permeates everything around you. As you would no doubt be aware, the higher vibrations that you carry can help relax those around you and keep the peace. For you, it also means that you are healthier and less likely to experience any form of negativity. You can send your light wherever it is needed and help others. You may well find that your presence brings calmness around you, and those who are receptive will be aware of it. Your energies are healing, but would be even more effective if the patient was present and received the energies direct. All through your life you are subjected to the effects of energies that are swirling around you. Some are beneficial whilst others are not, but normally you can handle them depending on your own level of vibration. Additionally, you have the safeguard of the energies within your aura that encase your physical body. And it is simple to keep it intact through your power of thought by avoiding any negative feelings. You will certainly feel better and brighter as a result. As your aura extends outside of your physical body up to possibly 2 meters or more, it is felt by any person that is near enough to it, and is why they feel good where positive energies are concerned. However, contact with someone carrying negative energies can be a very unpleasant experience. For those people able to see auric colors, as you might expect, positive energies are bright, strong, and clear, whilst negative ones can be dull and extremely dark. You could walk past a very negative person and feel a shudder run through your body. Colors play an important part in your lives, and those that are strong and clear make you feel good. And naturally, the negative ones can be exactly the opposite. Your lives are affected all of the time and in nature, and they are normally of such a great variety and beautiful designs. Perhaps that is why you get so much enjoyment walking through some of the great gardens throughout the world. The negative forces seem to be intent on starting a world that would not benefit any country taking part in it. Death and destruction is not the basis for lasting peace, and surely a sensible way would be to discuss the differences that exist. We realize that politics are at the root of the principal differences between you. But regardless of them, you all have to live together and understand that you must find a remedy for them peacefully. Otherwise, without being an alarmist, the end of the world as you know it may come about. We would rather talk about joyful and happy events, but the sad fact remains that you are dangerously close to extending the clashes that are taking place into a more serious situation. However, project thoughts of peace as much as possible so that the calming energies keep a greater conflict at bay. Prayer and positive thoughts will help hold back an escalation of the that is taking place, but a wrong decision could change all of it for the worse. Whatever the outcome, be assured that greater forces than those on Earth are ready to intervene if matters get out of hand. And continue to keep a watchful eye on what is happening. We understand the frustration you feel at so many problems that have risen in such a short time. but it has been inevitable given that your old ways of living have not proved to be adequate for meet the needs of the millions of people living on the earth. Clearly a lot has to change, and already ideas are being given as to how the problems can be overcome. But it is proving difficult in the present climate. Nevertheless, changes for the better are beginning to surface so that given the opportunity, they can be put into practice. Certainly many of the old ways of living are no longer adequate for the needs of the people. This period of time and change has been foreseen for a very long time and is not unexpected given that your last cycle has long finished. It is why the emphasis is on change, as the time has long arrived when you must prepare for dramatic ones that are imminent. Prepare for the future as far as possible and let go of that which no longer serves your purpose, as new ways of living are already being discussed. They will be an advancement on the old ones, and much is already waiting to be introduced. You have been deliberately held back in the past, and now is the time to move on and introduce innovations that will make life easier and more enjoyable. We have much to offer you that will make your advancement into the new age happen very quickly, and we shall do so when the time is right. You must realize that we cannot openly contact you when the world is in turmoil, and it must be at peace. It will come sooner than you possibly expect, as coming events will quickly change the situation on Earth. I leave you with love and blessings, and may the light brighten your days and path to completion. This message comes through my higher self, my God self, and every soul has the same connection to God. In love and light, Mike Quincy.